the truth of the matter, and you said it so well, Dr. Vibe, there are countless Black, African/Caribbean students, international students who are here in our cities who are struggling.
It's hard to know because we don't have like the data to say what is the state of Black health before and after. And that's something that we've been advocating for, right? We need better race-based data that's done in a way that serves us, because race-based data has been collected on different groups in ways that actually cause harm, but we need it to be done with us in a way that serves us.
What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations 2020, Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads and fathers. It's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And being part of that team, we've reached out directly and indirectly to over 400,000 dads, fathers, and male caregivers around the world since 2020. So I always like to say that, and as always, I like to say you're blessed, highly favored, a magnet for miracles, and a solution for someone's problem. Let's do some house stuff. As always, please subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. I'd like to happily say that we are now past 1,500 subscribers on the YouTube channel. And a big thanks to you all for making that happen. You can also follow me on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram. Also, too, if you want to advertise your business, product, or service on the platform, please feel free to reach out to me at dr.vibe at the dr, vibeshow.com. Also, too, want to say a big shout out to Indie Soup Media, which is powered by our good friend Dr. Tachi, based out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Indie Soup Media, independent content creators network that's been up since about 5 months now, has over 15,000 YouTube subscribers, and almost every conversation I host, edited versions are available on that platform. So really want to encourage you to check out my content there and other independent content creators. I'm also a member of the advisory board. And I think that's it for today. We are a little bit later than usual. Start time for Black Canada Talking, where Black Canadians give their points and POVs, opinions on things that are happening locally, in Canada, provincially, nationally, and worldwide. And we are blessed to have Cesar Ndema-Moussa here with us. He has just landed in his seat. Just wanted him to make sure he got in settled. So let's bring Cesar on. What's going on, Cesar?
Dr. Vibe, thank you for having me. My apologies. Some heavy traffic in Ottawa on a Sunday afternoon by Innes, Ogilvy, and Blair. Those who know Ottawa understand if you have traffic there, you're pretty much stuck to go into the eastern part of town. So
what's going on in Ottawa this weekend?
Well, there was Carrie Vibe yesterday.
Okay.
That I heard of. I did not attend. It was on Patriot Island. I heard it was successful from people who were there, that there was enough attendance. And I do have some family members who did make it. So I'm glad for the success and anything that brings forward Black consciousness. Just as notably, yesterday was a celebration of the Kemetic New Year. So people of celebrating, Black people celebrating the roots from ancient Egypt, from Kemet. Mm-hmm. It was the New Year 6261, and there were celebrations in Montreal, Toronto, in Europe, in Africa. A reminder to our Black people who are believers of the religions of Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, that there are other calendars, and the calendars of the ancestors long predate those of religions that came to Black people by slavery and colonization.
You were talking about Cara Festa. Is that something you usually attend? And the reason why I asked that.
I have attended it in the past. I cannot say no. Usually would not be correct to say, but I have attended it a few editions indeed.
Yeah, I in Toronto we have something, and a number of people who are called Caravana, which has been going on for long period of time. And I'll be honest, I haven't attended that at least a good 18 to 20 years.
Was there any change to the fact that he was, I don't want to say appropriated per se, but from black ownership and run to banks? I think Scotia Bank.
There was a bank at a time that had ownership, but I believe now it's owned, or the trademark or the name is owned by a South Asian.
Oh, South. Wow. I mean, imagine Chinese New Year being run by African and Caribbean people, right?
Just now, and you know what? And part of me, yeah, but, and I know people are going to be hard on me. I'm tired of the partying. And I know we need to party every once in a while. Nothing wrong with that. But I'm really, we had that moment in the sun sort of, but then where are all the monies going? We don't, we got to, I just would like many of our people to focus their energies on us working together and have something foundational, lasting. But that's just me.
No, it's not just you. And I mean, even the topics that we will talk about eventually directly and indirectly talk about that. I mean, we're going to talk about those topics, but just a reminder to our Black people here, if I'm not mistaken, I read from some statistics in the US, the community that votes the least is I think I'm going to say Asian, but I can't exactly remember. I'm going to assume, I'm going to use a purposeful term here to shock people. Some people may feel offended. Yellow Asian, so Far East Asia. I mean, we get called Black, you know what I mean? So that votes the least, but there are very strong economic powerhouse. Whoever comes to power, what does it matter to them? I mean, obviously, I'm speaking here, but I'm not one of the community. But interestingly, the same happens in France. The same happens in France where I come from. So there is this trend in terms of Far East Asian / Yellow Asian communities to vote the least, but to have strong communities and to always be taken into account whoever comes into power. And whatever the rhetoric that we hear about China, etc., the local politicians know the Far East Asian community is a community they can't play with. I mean, there is a Chinatown in every major city.
Absolutely.
If 100%. You think about the Black part of town, yeah.
Well, this is another thing too. In Toronto, we have this Little Jamaica. And it's been around. Actually, when I was much younger growing up, I used to live in Little Jamaica. And there were a lot of West Indian, African-owned businesses along this strip, along Eglinton Avenue between Marley, basically, and Oakwood. And hardly any of those businesses own their shops. And now there's a new rapid transit system development, and it's totally changed up. And I know there's a fight to keep it as much Black presence as possible, but again, no ownership. Now, hey, last weekend they had a big event there. There was a celebration. There was a concert. I heard there were like 30 to 40,000 people at this event. Hey, next day, quiet.
Yeah, no, I can't celebrate that. I think we have to be honest amongst ourselves as Black people. And I mean, I always say it, the three cancers of the Black psyche. Entertainment is number one. Consumerism, number two. Religion, number three. We can't have 30 or 40,000 Black people coming there to celebrate, to party and all that. But when it comes to matter of strength, when it comes to matter of unity, when it comes to socio-economical and political survival of our communities, we hear crickets. And the people who are present tend to be the same people who are always present, aka the minority of a minority. those who care, those who are activists, those who are conscious, those who reach a certain age where they start thinking about the children and the grandchildren. It's not viable as a community when basically you are the loudest, you are the ones who pray the most, you are the ones who are the most seen visibly in entertainment, the flashiest, and yet, rightfully, you are the ones who complain the most about racism. You are the ones who complain the most about, prejudices, etc., etc. You're the ones who are too often at the bottom of statistics, but you're the ones who are the most present when it's time to party. It's there comes a point where we can only point the finger so many times at others, while still denying that most fingers are actually pointed at us.
100%. 100%. 100%. Well, you know what? It has been, usually Sundays are a quiet day. Usually, and I kind of say it one more time, usually, but this Sunday is going to go down in history because Joe Biden has dropped out of the U.S. presidential race. Mm-hmm. And the funny, and I've been watching media since it happened a few hours ago. Actually, we're going to read his post on Twitter. That was at 2:13 p.m. today on July 21st. My fellow Democrats, I have decided not to accept the nomination and to focus all my energies on my duties as president for the remainder of my term. My very first decision as the party nominee in 2020 was to pick Kamala Harris as my vice president, and it's been the best decision I've made. Today, I want to offer my full support and endorsement for Kamala to be the nominee of our party this year. Democrats, it's time to come together and beat 45. Let's do this. So, Cesar, where were you when you first heard this, and what was your immediate reaction? And maybe you've had some time to think about it deeper. Let's go.
I was actually washing my car. I'm home. I was washing my car, and how can I put it? Let's go back to 2 weeks ago when we were talking. We talked about a white gentleman, a professor who studies elections, Alan Lichtman. And he said something very interesting, which actually addresses both our main two topics in terms of the Republicans lacking principles, but the Democrats being spineless. And unfortunately, in the last, this summer, this has been quite a summer of politics, right? From Trump's felony, Trump's officially becoming a felon, 34 charges, found guilty, to the assassination attempt on him. I'm not minimizing, but just as the Republicans have worked very hard to sow doubt in people's minds regarding media, I've read and seen from people, black as white, having doubts that this was a legitimate assassination attempt, whatever legitimate would imply. And then today we have Joe Biden dropping out of the U.S. presidential race. What kind of message does he send? It's kind of like, if you're a Republican, the fact that someone is a felon, a rapist, has declared bankruptcy 6 times, is a constant liar, aka the GOAT, greatest liar of all time, that is not something to prevent him from becoming the nominee for your convention. But if you're a Democrat, and the Republicans like to claim being the party of law and order. What a joke since Trump has been in power. And I'm saying 2016. But in terms of the Democrats, well, if you are old, if you are sick, and especially if you have a bad debate, be careful. Your party might want to drop you out. It's kind of and I'm not absolutely here saying, I mean, that Joe Biden should not have retired. He should not have dropped out. Everybody knows my stance in terms of U.S. politics, in terms of any Western politics. I'm a Pan Africanist first and foremost, so I'm not here to take sides. But the truth of the matter is that here, regarding Joe Biden, I truly think it is a bad look on the Democratic Party, a look of such disunity, betrayal. I don't want to say disappointed, but you would think people such as Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Barack Obama. I didn't hear about the Clintons before, but you should have put unity behind the president, the head of your party, and let him decide on his own to drop out instead of giving this borderline Shakespearean drama. And I'm really saying Shakespearean because as he dropped out of the race, it's like he couldn't catch a break since that bad debate from then until getting COVID. And in between, Trump basically gets his Florida document case temporarily tossed out. He basically gets all of these hypocritical Republicans coming to praise him. Meanwhile, he insulted most of them, and most of them have insulted him, and all of this is on record. It's all online. And yet you have this Democratic Party that likes to sound morally above all, respecting the rules. I mean, this is the party of Michelle Obama saying, when they go low, we aim high. I mean, I'm sorry. That is so not what was shown, you know. So I think he did the right thing, like he said, for the party, for the nation. And it would be quite a scandal if it's not Kamala Harris, the vice president, and notably as a Black woman. Joe Biden 2020's campaign was gone before Black women came to support him. So whoever would want to prevent or to challenge Kamala Harris, to be the head of the Democratic ticket would be quite a fool in the age of notably identity politics on one side, which is what the Republicans will claim anyways, but also on the side of experience, expertise. She is the best person to replace Joe Biden. There is no contest to it.
So let's see. There's some other updates we can take a look at. I'm just going to go to CNN's website and just show some this, because this is breaking news and things are changing on the spot. So let's see if there's some things that maybe Cesar may want to comment about. So just give me a second here. Let's go here. So looking at so anti-abortion groups are jumping on the news that Biden has endorsed Harris. The Susan B. Anthony Pro-Life America and National Right to Life are out with statements leaving her as, quote, abortion czar, unquote, and they aim to mobilize their voters against her, much like when they turned out their voters against Hillary Clinton in 2016, even when they didn't love 45. It's also an opportunity for them to argue for space in a 45 campaign that is not centered their priorities. Oh, so here this is Kamala Harris in the last hour, a full statement saying, on behalf of the American people, I thank Joe Biden for his extraordinary leadership as president of the United States and for decades of service to our country. His remarkable legacy of accomplishment is unmatched in modern American history, surpassing the legacy of many presidents who have served 2 terms in office. It is a profound honor to serve as his vice president. I am deeply grateful to the president, Dr. Biden, and the entire Biden family. I first came to know President Biden through his son, Beau. We were friends from our days working together at the attorneys generals in our home states. As we worked together, Beau would tell me stories about his dad, the kind father and the kind man he was. And the qualities Bo revered in his father are the same qualities, the same values I have seen every single day in Joe's leadership as president. His honesty and integrity, his big heart and commitment to his faith and his family, and his love of our country and the American people as a whole. With this selfless and patriotic act, President Biden is doing what he's done throughout his life of service, putting the American people and our country above everything else. I am honored to have had the president's endorsement, and put my intention is to earn and win this nomination. So she is in. Over the past year, I've traveled across the country talking with Americans about the clear choice in this momentous election. And that is what I will continue to do in the days and weeks ahead. I will do everything in my power to unite the Democratic Party and unite our nation, and to defeat 45 in his extreme Project 2025 agenda. We have 107 days until Election Day. Together, we will fight, and together we will win. So she is in the race.
She is in, and she should be in. There's no, it's 3.5 months left, roughly. And yet, but I mean, on a very positive thing, this changes the news, this changes the hype regarding Trump, because Trump was pretty much, I mean, and that's what Trump does, pretty much sucking out the airtime, and now it has shifted back to the Democrats, but in a positive light, instead of just negatively talking about Joe Biden health and who's going to replace him. I mean, in a way, the way the Democrats did it, however, is I would say unfortunate in the sense of quite disrespectful to senior citizens. It's not as if Joe Biden became a senior in the last year. 81 years old. Democrats knew last year. They knew at the last elections, and at the same time, let's be honest, Trump is 78. They're the same generations. This is not a matter of making it seem like Joe is old and Trump is not. But yes, there is something to the fact of Trump looking more energetic in comparison to Joe Biden. Absolutely. But he also reminds me of what I think it was Bill Clinton was said this in the 90s. Wrong. What is it again? Wrong and strong.
No, I don't know.
Always better.
Okay. Yes. Strong and wrong, or weak and right.
Exactly. Strong and wrong always comes off better than weak and right. And unfortunately, this is what we have. This is what we've seen since the debate. And to be quite honest, CNN did quite a disservice to Joe Biden in that debate. But I'm saying CNN. Joe Biden's team did a disservice to Joe Biden because they agreed to the terms of the debate in which there was no fact-checking on Trump at the moment. Literally, he should have been called out at the moment. Imagine the perception he would have made, notably in balancing one's visible old age in plain sight versus one's constant lies in plain sight. And when you look at now what could seem to be indeed the closure of Joe Biden's political age, the transition, the passing of the baton. Well, the truth of the matter is this. Kamala Harris, wow, she is a prosecutor who is going to challenge someone who is persecuted. She is basically the lawmaker who is going to, I mean, I'm speaking as if we are a month from now, the Democratic National Convention in Chicago, and she has been assermented, she has been nominated, but as the most likely candidate, Kamala Harris is basically the lawmaker going against a felon. I mean, this is a woman going against a rapist. This is a black person going against the racist. I mean, the exonerated five, aka Central Park 5, that Trump was calling to basically, throw them in jail and throw the key away, this N-word. And I really say N-word. We have black people trying to claim Trump is not racist and all that. This is so unfortunate. Sorry, go ahead, Dr. Vibe.
No, it's interesting if it happens. Could you imagine a debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump?
That would be a beautiful thing to watch. A man versus a woman, a white man will really represent white supremacy, white privilege. And I'm saying white privilege, let us be honest. Most white men would not be able to get away with what Trump has gotten away with. If I were to cite a modern day philosopher who, whether it's by interest or basically an opportunity to talk about himself, a modern philosopher who has apparently come out to support Trump, Curtis Jackson, aka 50 Cent. He has said it a few years ago. You wanted an entertainer president, well, you got one. And this is basically what Trump is. It's a constant clown show. And it really makes me laugh when we are seeing, and we don't have to agree, obviously, with everything the Democrats or Joe Biden or Kamala Harris stand for. This is not the question. It becomes a matter of values. And in saying values, to be honest with you, Dr. Vibe, November will actually, and I'm speaking here under the assumption that Kamala Harris will be the one to challenge Donald Trump, it will be truly less about Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. It would be more kind of a referendum on Trump. Are you for Trump or against Trump? Because he has already been president, and he, despite his flip-flops and his attempt to be nuanced about what he stands for, and we're going to talk about it in a moment, when we look at such a thing as Project 2025, him claiming not to know anything about it, but then turns out that a lot of the people who drafted that, who wrote that 900 pages, I believe, paper, have worked in his administration. So here it becomes a matter of America further and further stepping into its decline with a new opportunity to put at the helm save democracy, as Joe Biden was saying it, or a further step towards autocratism, as Trump has shown in terms of the judges that he has selected, in terms of, I mean, you just look at that I think federal judge in Florida regarding the document case,
Eileen Cannon. Yeah.
My God, try to tell me this woman is not biased. Try to tell me this judge is not biased. She's not pro-Trump. More and more articles are clearly saying it. Her behavior and ultimately her tossing out the case is that she's basically banking on Trump winning the presidency in November, and she will get a shot at, most likely, the Supreme Court. I mean, and I mean, like I'm saying, I'm a Pan-Africanist. Whoever wins, Pan-Africanism wins.
Okay. I want to just get to some comments. Your number one fan, Michelle, says, greetings, Dr. Vibe and Cesar. She also says, please, not another years of the Orange Man. But I want to focus back, because we're going to talk about the Republicans after the break. I want to focus on the Democrats a little bit. First of all, do you feel they'll nominate her as their representative in a not too congested manner?
Well, unlike the Republicans, the Democrats, in convincing themselves that they have the moral higher standards, will go through the process of nomination, etc., etc. The question is, who will have the courage and borderline the audacity, allow me to correct myself, the caucasity, because it will be a white person. I don't see a black person going to challenge Kamala Harris for the position. I don't see a woman going to challenge Kamala Harris for the position. I mean, on paper and in terms of the reality on the ground, she was the VP. She has already been connected. She is the one person after Joe Biden known. I mean, who's going to come in? I mean, let's just go, let's be fantastical. Michelle Obama? Oprah? Who are you going to put there? It's not realistic. Yes, I have no reason to think someone else. I mean, unless the Democrats are truly trying to sabotage the possibility of winning.
I think that if the Democrats, they got to think about win. That's what the Republicans do. They think about who's the best, not maybe the best person, but the best person to win.
And that's why they come in, they fold. That's why you see the Marco Rubio, the Ted Cruz, and the Mitch McConnell. I mean, did he insult my wife? Hey, it's okay. Party first. Let me be a hypocrite.
So then my second part, and I just want to chat here, Dr. Tachi, good to have you here. We talked about this podcast being on Indie Soup Media. You live in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I would love to get your live response to Joe Biden calling it quits and Kamala Harris saying no. And plus, sometime I usually host a great conversation on Saturdays called Prime Time with Aisha and Lala. We usually hold it on Saturday nights. Both of them two beautiful African-American women who try to make sense of the nonsense of politics and what's going on in the United States. So I've had back channel conversations with them. We are hoping to do an episode just on this event as soon as possible. So follow me wherever you follow me on social media. I don't want to wait till Saturday to have this conversation. Plus, Lala's celebrating her 31st wedding anniversary next Saturday, so she's not going to be around. So keep a watch and follow me on all the different channels. And also just want to say a big shout out to Minion Cam, who's a regular contributor on the Morning Vibe. So good to have you here also. So do you feel America, let alone were they ready for a black man as a president, are they ready for a black woman as a president?
Dr. Vibe, let us get controversial here. You're talking about a black woman. Okay. There are people who hated Obama, not because he did anything wrong in terms of his policies. Let's be honest, many of the people who voted for Trump voted for Trump because they couldn't swallow the fact of having the black president. Meanwhile, they did benefit from Obama's policies, notably regarding poor people, notably regarding healthcare, Obamacare, and yet the fact of a black president, no, that was too much. With Kamala Harris, let us dare to get controversial here. Let's do opposite to Michelle Obama. Let us go low. She's black. She's a woman. Her husband is white. Her husband is Jewish. And she doesn't have kids. Identity markers, there are people for each one of them, and you combine the intersectionality of them, there are people who will not vote for her simply because of who and what she is. That's it, that's all. Is America ready for it? America was not ready for Barack Obama. But the George Bush presidency was, at the end of it, and in the context of the subprime and economic crisis then, made it that Obama was able to win. And here we see the same case here when indeed Kamala Harris could win. And again, we are speaking with the assumption that she would be the nominee. Because as I said earlier, these POTUS, President of the United States elections, are less about Kamala Harris or whoever, Democrat versus Trump. It really becomes a question for Americans. Do you want to go back to the presidency as Trump, 2016 to 2020, considering also everything that has been revealed? Just look at how he became charged as a felon. The crime was never the fact.
But do a lot of Americans care about that?
Actually, they do. No. I used to think, no, Americans don't care. No, they do care. But the question is not so much that you care. The question is between you caring and you going to the election booth, what happens? And this is where, as we're speaking about Americans, white evangelical Christians are among the biggest hypocrites in America right now.
You're
Oh,
going there. You're going there.
I absolutely say it, and I truly speak of it. And allow me to give a shout out to Brother Malachi Johnson, Life Coach Malachi. You can follow him on Life Coach Malachi. You can follow him on YouTube and Facebook. When we did have a conversation, and Dr. Vibe, thank you. You did promote that event. When he did interview me on religious trauma. White evangelical Christians are a big problem in America because they're literally, and yes, there are black evangelical Christians. That's not the question here, but they overwhelmingly vote Democrat. But white evangelical Christians vote Republicans overwhelmingly, convince themselves to vote for a man such as Trump, who is literally a contradiction of everything they claim to stand about. An unfaithful man who is an unfaithful man to his pregnant wife with a sex worker, a fraudster who has ripped off notably poor people, Trump University and other initiatives, the Trump Bible, a man who has no hesitation having a language that even at the convention he said himself, I was told not to use profanities.
Okay, let's hold back because we're going to say the second half to the Republican Party, but I'm going to maybe take this in a different direction. Do you think that Kamala Harris may have more opportunity of getting the young vote more than Joe Biden did?
Yes, he will. There is a generational gap here. Look, I don't have a problem with the fact that Joe Biden was 81 years old. I mean, how old was he 4 years ago? He was 77. It's the same generation. People are acting like suddenly he's 10 or 15 years older. No. Kamala Harris, yes, she's younger. She's more energetic. When I say younger, the younger vote is not so much in terms of the age of the person running for president. It's more in terms of the language, the energy. This is why, for example, when you look at many young people or younger people, notably black, who are tempted by voting for Trump, is because of where he's standing, such as, and again, I'm spilling onto our next topic in terms of the RNC convention, the opposition to the pronouns and inclusion of LGBTQ people. There are some young people who basically are seeing the reality of society changing, and they become nostalgic of a time when it seemed to them a man was a man, a woman was a woman, and there was no feminism, and you could sustain or provide for your family and be respected as a man or as a woman. You didn't have to deal with such things as trans in sports, basically blowing up exceptions, blowing up small things to make it dramatic and playing fear and control upon people's minds. It is not accidental. These are very purposefully done things.
Yeah, I think that the Democratic Party may have a chance to scoop up a lot of young people's votes.
They do it well.
They have, but the young people were sort of iffy over the last while about Biden. They have a chance maybe to recoup those votes. I think that many on cams talking about evangelical Christians saying they are the biggest hypocrites around the world.
Oh, no, they really are, Dr. Vibe. Dr. Vibe, and I didn't go too much in detail speaking with on that interview on religious trauma with brother life coach Malachi, but when you look at the black community, the homophobia in the black community, the hatred that too many have towards LGBTQ people, black LGBTQ people, it is the influence of white evangelical Christians. And yet, those are the same white evangelical Christians who get rich off poor white people while pointing the finger, telling their flock, look at those black people, look at those LGBTQ people, look at those immigrants, while claiming Jesus and the Bible. It is a It is a high hypocrisy that becomes centered on a man such as Trump. Why? Despite all of his flaws, he can protect us from accepting LGBTQ people. He can protect us from actually reviewing our history and the harm and evil that we have supported in the name of Jesus in America. It's they're very hypocrites. I have really no sympathy to them. And our hero, Martin Luther King, even then called them out. He knew about them.
Okay. Dr. Tachi says a big part of the problem is that the U.S. lacks civics educations. So many people don't understand the way civics work.
I agree 100%.
100%, 100%, 100%. So again, you're watching live. And also, if you're watching this on replay, please put in the comments, what do you think about this turn in American politics? Can Kamala Harris win? If that debate happens, that's going to be an interesting debate. If that debate happens, that if she wins the nomination, if that debate, wow, that could, because I remember Kamala Harris when she was speaking on his impeachment committees, and she,
yes, yes, that's what I'm saying. The prosecutor versus the prosecuted, and please, Team Kamala Harris. And I know you all mean well, but please hear me out. If someone is watching this, please pass on the message to the team of Kamala Harris. Do not aim for this, excuse my language, because I am not someone who use profanities. My family, my friends will say it. Do not fall for this morally condescending of they aim low, we aim high. No. You have a debate with someone like Donald Trump or J.D. Vance. Insist on immediate fact-checking. Not fact-checking an hour and a half or 2 hours after the debate or 2 days. No. They say something, cut off the mic. That was great. That something great of the debate. Cut off the mic. Every whatever 10, 15 minutes, whatever it is, fact check of what has been said without challenging. Let the journalist confirm this that you said was correct. This that you said was partially correct. This that you said was false. Democrats have to basically, I don't know the expression, like kind of like something up the butt about thinking the morally superior. It doesn't work like that. This is politics.
They got to go in the ring and fight with them.
Exactly.
Right. Look, Americans, is America's reputation passive?
America likes to think of itself. And please, American people, if what I'm going to say offends you, that's a good thing. Too often, Americans like to think of themselves in the image of Hollywood Superman coming to save the world. And yet the reality, it's that character in that TV show, The Protector in The Boys, a TV show kind of, and I'm not here saying America is evil, nation cruel. No. That's not my rhetoric. I always remind people, no matter how much you dislike America, if aliens come to invade, you're going to pray that Uncle Sam is ready. You see what I mean? But we have to recognize that in the polarization of politics that we're dealing with all over the Western world, but truly all over the world, you cannot have one side that has no qualms about lying, cheating, deceiving, etc., and having someone such as Trump, who is so morally reprehensible that even far-right parties in Europe look at it that, can we go there? That's extreme even for them. And you can have people on the Democratic side who want to come in there as sheep. Joe Biden, yes, did defeat Trump in 2020, but there was a COVID context as well. Here, if we are to have Kamala Harris, 91 indictment, 34 guilty, he's a felon. There is so much baggage. If Trump was a black man, we know he would never had it.
Okay, let's hold it off because I know you want to get more into talking about the Republican Party. One other little fact. It was, I think, talked about that Joe Biden only wanted to run for one term originally.
Originally, yes.
He was a one-term president. So maybe the only hiccup for the Democratic Party is Mr. Biden said, I'm only doing one and done. I'm only doing one and but things have changed. So Dr. Tachi says, exactly, they aim low, we throw rocks.
Yes,
And
yes. That's the spirit. That's the spirit. This is not a matter of morality or philosophy. It's power.
About power.
It's a matter of money. It's a matter of justice. Trump wins. What do you think is going to happen to those court cases against him? But
let's stop. Please. Let's stop and save it for the other half. Let's stop for the other half. Okay, we're going to stop because Cesar is jumping back and forth about 45 Republicans. Let's just take a break and he can go all in with the Republicans. All right? So we're going to take a quick little break and then Cesar is going to go in on 45 and the Republican Party. So hold tight for about a minute and a half and we'll be right back on Black Canada Talking. Joe Biden's out. What's next?
Hello, everybody. My name is Paige. I am a marketing consultant and the host of More Than a Mom, the podcast. I am here at the Soundwave Summit, and I had the pleasure of speaking with Dr. Vibe, and the gems he dropped were unmatched. An accidental conversation really changed my whole plan. And if I had him 3 years ago when I started my consulting career, it would have made a major change. The biggest thing that I learned that I'm taking with me is understanding that I do not have a show, I have a solution. And I think that's something that's not talked about enough. Another thing that really adjusted my mindset was the power of positive language. I was telling him about some of my problems are asking for help. I'm always pouring into other people, but it's hard and it's a problem that I can't get that same thing in return. And he said, it's not a problem. It's something that, what did you say? Not a problem. You said, oh, it's a challenge. It's something that's a challenge for me. And that simple adjustment of language, I went away to lunch and I called 4 people and I'm like, hey friends, we need to change our energy. We need to change our outlook. We are solution-driven people. We do not need to do things the way society tells us to do things. This checklist that we feel like we need to fall under, this 10-minute conversation we had, it changed up everything. So I'm so thankful for the gems. I feel like I'm going to go back and make a whole new to-do list that's based on how I need to do things, a different way of looking at things, and I'm just so thankful. So thank you, Dr. Vibe.
What is up? We are back. Black Canada Talking. July 21st, 2024. Historic day in American politics and maybe in the world. Joe Biden has said he's not going to run for re-election. Now, before we get into Cesar going all in about the Republicans in 45, I'm going to show an interesting segment of a video that was from the Breakfast Club, which is hosted by DJ Envy and Charlemagne the God. And they had a gentleman on there this week recently named Umar Johnson. Dr. Umar Johnson, very controversial, but I'm going to show a segment where he talked about 45. So here we go.
Trump signed 13 federal death executions while he was president. More than half of them was signed after Joe Biden won the election. Think about that now. Biden gets elected in November, sworn in January. Between that time, Donald Trump executes half of those 13 people. 5 of them were black men, and 2 of those black men were presumed innocent. And the attorneys had introduced a stay of execution to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court turned them down, and Donald Trump executed those brothers. So when I hear black men say, I'm voting for Donald Trump because he's going to bring more money and economic vitality into the black community, I say, what about the fact that he's out here killing black folks, you understand, without no remorse at all? Signing those type of federal death warrants. 2 brothers was murdered within 24 hours of each other. One of them was 40 years old, and he was the first person to be murdered in 70 years for a crime he committed as a teenager. And in one of those cases, about 6 of the jurors said they would have changed their decision on the death sentence had they knew the information that the prosecution had withheld from them. That's why the attorney wanted the stay of execution to give the defense time to reformulate the argument. And Supreme Court, Snow Bunny, Clarence Thomas and that crew said no, and Donald Trump signed his life away. So you got to look at that. You also got to look at the fact that Donald Trump wants to give police 100% immunity.
That's right.
Wait a minute. Look how they're killing us now. Yeah. So now you're telling me that anything the police do in their line of duty, they cannot be held accountable for making bad mistakes and bad decisions, and you want to put that back in office? That's thirsty black men worry more about money than the lives of their people.
That's right. The Supreme Court is corrupt.
Yes.
Illegitimate.
Absolutely.
How come enough people not talking about that?
Because I don't think they understand the tripartite nature of American so-called democracy.
Mm-hmm.
The Supreme Court, the president, and the Congress, they actually have equal weight, right? Well, they held from them. That's why the attorney wanted the stay of execution to give the defense time to reformulate an argument. And Supreme Court, Snow Bunny, Clarence Thomas, and that crew said no, and Donald Trump signed his life away. So you got to look at that. You also got to look at the fact that Donald Trump wants to give police 100% immunity.
That's right.
Wait a minute. Look how they're killing us now.
Right.
So now you're telling me that anything the police do in their line of duty, they cannot be held accountable for making bad mistakes and bad decisions. And you want to put that back in office? That's thirsty black men worry more about money than the lives of their people.
That's right. The Supreme Court is corrupt.
Yes.
Illegitimate.
Absolutely.
How come enough people not talking about that?
Because I don't think they understand the tripartite nature of American so-called democracy.
Mm-hmm.
The Supreme Court, the president, and the Congress, they actually have equal weight, right? Well, they did. But now what the Supreme Court just did was they gave the president a few days ago absolute immunity from criminal prosecution for decisions made in office and carrying out his constitutionally protected duties. That's very dangerous, because what that says is the president can never go to jail, even if he commits genocide, if it was done in an act of office. So let's say hypothetically Donald Trump or Joe Biden sends the National Guard into New York to quell a black protest, and the National Guard, God forbid, ends up executing 5,000 of our brothers and sisters who were protesting peacefully. Even though it was ordered by the president of the United States, he cannot be held accountable for that. Why? Because he did it in discharging his duties as commander-in-chief. So we don't no longer have a president. We have an emperor. We have a czar. We have a king. Because what the Supreme Court just did is said the president is beyond reproach and the president is beyond the reach of the law. Dangerous.
Yeah, and I feel like enough people aren't having that conversation.
They're not having that conversation.
It's weird to me. Like I understand, talking about Biden and his bad debate performance.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
I even understand talking about Project 2025, even though it's a hypothetical. But this is happening now.
Yes.
And nobody's having the conversation.
And for black folks, it don't matter if it's Trump or Biden. The bottom line is the president of the United States, none of whom have ever been friends of the black community, will have the ability to do what they want as long as it takes place within the execution of duty. They cannot be held criminally liable. Now, here's my thing. I wonder what are the repercussions of that on the world court when you're dealing with genocide in the Geneva Convention. So are you saying that the president of the United States cannot be held criminally responsible for crimes of genocide against humanity? That goes against the whole Geneva Convention. So I'm wondering what the UN and what the world court has to say about the Supreme Court's decision.
What are your thoughts on Donald Trump currently? In particular, the agenda that is Project 2025.
The Project 2025 reminds me a lot. Remember the Newt Gingrich contract on America back at the turn of the century? It kind of reminds me of that. It is very dangerous, but when I look at Project 2025, a lot of it is already being carried out. So they want to eliminate the Department of Education. I think we talked about this probably my first visit to the Breakfast Club, where I spoke of how the U.S. Constitution does not give your child a right to an education. The word education is not in the Constitution. But many people feel like educational taxes or their taxes that go to education is too burdensome and cumbersome. And they're saying, why do I have to pay school tax when the Constitution doesn't even give nobody a right to get an education in the first place? So why am I paying for this? So a lot of people want to phase that out. Remember, when you go to white America, half of white America either don't have school-age children or don't send them to public school anyway. So it will completely blot out the school tax. Not only that, the money that still remains, they want to redirect it to not charter schools, to private schools and parochial schools, which, to my understanding, is a violation of the separation of church and state. How can you get public money to the Catholic school? But that's what they want to do. They also want to shut down Social Security. They also want to completely eliminate all diversity, equity, and inclusion laws and bills. But I got to say this, though, because the Democrats are pretty hypocritical, because when you look at what Governor DeSantis is doing in Florida, and when you look at the fact that you got 18 states that have already passed laws to eliminate all diversity, equity, and inclusion program, that's a third, right? Why aren't the Democrats pushing back against it? President Biden was reportedly stated that he will not push back against the Republican effort to eliminate all DEI programs. So doesn't that make you complicit in the removal of the DEI? See, what the Democrats do that black people tend not to catch on is they'll let the Republicans play the bad guy.
That's right.
Because they can't afford to lose the black vote. So although we don't support DEI ourselves, we're not going to be the ones to front this. We're going to let DeSantis and the other mavericks go out and do this. But guess what? We're not going to push back against it. So it looks like it wasn't us. It was you, because silence in the face of injustice is complicity. And that's why, as far as I'm concerned, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are two wings on the same bird. And the one question we never have: when are we going to organize the black vote before we vote?
That's right.
If you notice, everybody tells us to vote. The politicians, black businesses, the fraternities, the churches, vote, vote, vote. The Urban League, the NAACP, Congressional Black Caucus, vote, vote, vote. Why do you think nobody never says organize the black vote before you vote? So we vote as a block. So politicians know we're doing this as a people. You know why? If we voted as a block, Envy, we can hold people accountable. See, if I vote as a block, I can hold Eric Adams accountable. I can hold Brandon Johnson accountable. I can hold Kamala Harris accountable, because she know we went to the polls as a people, united in oneness. But when you vote as individuals, schizophrenic, disorganized black votes, who you gonna hold accountable, Envy? The man can do what he want. You voted alone. You didn't link your vote with nobody. What can you do to me? If you say you go to Joe Biden, what you gonna do about police genocide? What can you do to me? You voted by yourself. If you notice, political power is all about mass organization. If you're not organized, your vote only matters to the person you're electing. It'll never matter to us.
Why don't you think we have?
I'll stop it right there. Okay, but he was on for an hour, and there's a whole bunch of subjects covered, and I was only going to let it run for a few minutes, but I thought it was so good, I just let it run. So
that's fine, and it really reconnects to what I say all the time. I don't do left-right politics. I'm a Pan-Africanist, because ultimately, the policies of either parties, to what extent are they truly beneficial to blacks? Yes, on the surface, Democrats, socialists, the left being in power seems to benefit black people. But in reality, when you see such a thing as DEI, I mean, I just give you an example. 2008, I worked for the Obama election in Michigan, International Corps of Volunteers. But I always reminded people, I'm here to help to elect the first black president of the United States. Enough to think he's going to have a black agenda or pro-black agenda per se. What was Obama's biggest regret out of his presidency? Going on a mission with Tony Blair of Great Britain and Nicolas Sarkozy of France to depose Gaddafi. Over 10 years later, all the terrorism in the Sahel region of Africa, basically all the terrorism that has killed thousands and thousands of Africans, dark-skinned black people like us, that has come from there. Obama said it himself. That is his biggest regret in terms of international foreign policy. Yeah.
Okay, let's get to our other conversation topic today. Cesar has jumped back and forth. He can go all in now. 45 from the assassination attempt to the Republican National Convention and Project 2025. Go for it.
I'm here. I had lost the connection for a moment.
No, I'm just saying, would like you to talk about 45 from the assassination attempt to the Republican National Convention that just ended and Project 2025. So you can go all in now.
Well, let's start on a light note. First of all, an assassination attempt is nothing to make fun of. It's nothing to take lightly. I absolutely do understand people, notably, let's say, anti-Trump people who are suspicious of whether it was a true assassination attempt. Don't get me wrong. The Republicans, and notably Trump, have worked so well for many years to sow doubt into anything reported by the media. It's only fair that they get that kind of logic thrown back at them. However,
can I just interrupt before we go any further? Now, they are the same people who thought January 6th was nothing. Right? So, but you're not hearing anything, and I'm just playing both sides of the fence here.
There you go.
There are many people of the Republic said, "Oh, that wasn't harm." No, they were okay.
So So they become complicit in the fact of many people who don't believe this assassination attempt was real. Now, in terms of the convention, it's important to mention uh, Donald Trump and the Republicans, they might owe some copyrights to to Nelly. Remember how back in the early 2000s, Nelly always had that Band-Aid, and now you have some people at the Republican convention having the gauze to the ear. Like,
I'm sorry, but that's cult thing. That's a cult.
It's a cult. I was laughing when I saw that, and it's like, solidarity to the dear leader. We sympathize with you. We come in, but let's face it, Christians were the cross. So, no, it's a cult thing. Basically, what you see at the convention, there are so many elements to talk about. I mean, I'm not even saying them in priority, but what was Amber Rose doing there? Amber Rose, oh man. When a friend sent me the video of her speech, I stopped at do your research. I was like, okay, enough. And then I find out Amber Rose apparently is involved in some scams involving crypto money. And basically, there is this video of a white woman debunking Amber Rose's presence in terms of her basically hoping Trump becomes president in order to avoid the prosecution that would send her to jail for some serious scamming of people. When you look at other people being the hypocrisy of not only the Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz and Mitch McConnell, I mean, you literally are there shaking the hands of a man who very publicly, this is not a small circle, very publicly insulted your wife, insulted your family, insulted your roots. Republicans lack principles. The so-called party of law, order, and God, they lack principles. They have no principles. They don't care. It's about power. And with a man like Trump, if you really read it, Trump would fit. And everybody knows my positions on religion in the Black community. But here among whites, Trump basically would fit in very well with the notion of the Antichrist, in terms of the values that he projects, the type of person that he is. But ultimately, his vice president select, J.D. Vance, literally, you have the screenshots of him criticizing Donald Trump a few years ago, talking about a man of such bad character. And here he's now buddy-buddy with Trump. He loves the family. He's such a great man. And yet, I saw this video of a white man. I'm really liking these white people coming out and calling out their own. This white man who made a video saying, J.D. Vance, be careful. They see your wife is Hindu. And he really, when his wife talked, he really said,
okay. So this I wanted to bring up too. It came up in primetime last night with Lala. His wife is Hindu.
Practicing Hindu. And they really made sure to put it at the convention in case you're wondering. I was like...
Now, how does the party accept that? How does 40... But okay, now, this again, political divide in the United States. I'm sure that South Asians don't align themselves. They think themselves more white than non-white.
Many, not all. I mean, we're talking South Asian. We're talking
but a lot of the white men in power will still consider them not white.
But absolutely, when she was talking, it was quite. I mean, to what extent are people sincere when they're talking and the passion? She didn't look like she believed what she was saying. I mean, sure, she loves her husband. That's not what I'm criticizing. I'm talking the part of the political aspect. She literally was there talking to a crowd of people who are applauding her as the wife of J.D. Vance, while at the same time, in the mindset and the politics, they're looking at people who look like her and saying, go back to the country where you come from, America first. Because when they're saying America first, when they're saying stop abortion, they're not They don't care about brown people. They're like, go back to your country. This is really what it's about. So you literally have this white man in his video talked about how J.D. Vance is actually an atheist. He's not a true Christian. He's a convenient Christian. He has an Indian brown wife, and he has biracial mixed children. Look at the crowd. Look at the videos of the crowd. How diverse was it? It was like a blonde hair everywhere, and it was so homogeneously white. It was so homogeneously white. This is not the party of diversity. Of course, you will have the sellout to the black cause, such as Tim Scott, who will make such a coonish speech, claiming there's no racism in America. Of course, he has no choice but to say that. And we have such politicians as well here in Canada who will deny black politicians who will deny the existence of systemic racism because of their own interests. But the facts, the studies, the reports are adamant.
I want to bring another part up of the convention that I found interesting. I want to get your take on this. All right. Vivek Ramaswamy saying this at the convention, quote, our message to Black Americans is this: the media has tried to convince you for decades that Republicans don't care about your neighborhoods, but we do. Quote, we want for you what we want for every American: safe neighborhoods, clean streets, good jobs, a better life for your children, and a justice system that treats everyone equally, regardless of your skin color and regardless of your political beliefs.
Yeah, Donald Trump. This is the guy who wouldn't even challenge. This is the guy who literally came in there for he wasn't even caring for the Republican nomination. I watched the debate and I started following him on Twitter. Vivek is like, he saw an opportunity to become nationally famous. I mean, he was attacking the other white woman who is actually Indian, aka Nikki Haley.
I want you to comment on what her performance at the convention.
Oh, they're all hypocrites, but it's okay. I mean, when I say it's okay, it's that's how Republicans do politics. I'm not saying Democrats don't have hypocrisy among them, but it's kind of like Republicans are openly racist out of the closet. Democrats, many of them, not all, of course, but many of them are racist, but in the closet. No, Nikki Haley was a pure hypocrite. I mean, someone said it, an analyst said it, where you gotta be the contrast of people as Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz is that you got to go back to 2015, 2016 to hear what they said about Trump. They were speaking truthfully on the views of Trump. Really? What's his name? Oh my God, DeSantis, Ron DeSantis, DeSantis. You just go back a few months. Trump is unfit to rule. All the drama, and here they are praising the great leader, showering him with honest. How can Trump respect such people? He can't respect them. Put yourself in Trump's shoes. He knows who they are. He knows the character. He's rightfully condescending and mocking to them. And as such, yes, he would want a VP such as Mike Pence, such as J.D. Vance.
Well, now, interesting enough, I heard that Mike Pence was not even at the convention.
Oh, but of course, and not invited because, of course, he dared to stand up and not participate in the coup d'etat. In the coup d'etat in 2020, he refused to follow the orders of the great leader. And, you basically have your convention where people coming to praise the love. And Hulk Hogan will basically, Hogan is a racist. How many cases do we need of black women, coming or whatever recorded leaks, even though we may have black wrestlers coming to say, no, he's not racist. Listen, we have far too many black people, and I can include here people such as Mike Tyson and, how do you call 50 Cent, saying that they stand with Trump and this and that. It's a matter of values. It's basically people, whether we're talking about the elections, but we're also talking about the workplace. We're talking about the family, in your homes, in your circle of friends. Would you want to associate yourself with? Progressive, more inclusive, addressing, issues of diversity and equality in our society, in our changing societies? Or you want to be conservative, aka going back in time to before 1960s, before the civil rights for black people, before the second movement of feminism and sexual liberation, before LGBTQ advocacy, and even because we're having someone like J.D. Vance talking about the white collar. The man is a millionaire. The man went to Yale. He does not speak representing the average white person who was struggling to pay the bills. That is not his reality. I even read that it's a lie, the story about his mother being a drug addict. Yes, she was, but not a drug addict out of poverty. An RN, a registered nurse, will become addicted to medication within the hospital context. I do not know. I'm saying very honestly, these are things that I discovered online as I'm educating myself further on this. But ultimately, it's a matter of value. And this is why we see on the Republican side so many of them flip-flopping. Amber Rose slut walk. Amber Rose will basically has publicly her sexual practices with Kanye West. Amber Rose, shaved head, single mom, tattooed, etc., etc. And she's speaking at the Republican convention of people talking about the flag, God, and America first. Many of these Republicans will basically look up who she is and they'll be like, how did we dare having this N-word woman in our convention?
I would have, it's a good point. I would have loved to have gone around in the audience and asked people at that convention what
they know her.
People, well, they know, and they because something tells me they didn't even care about that.
Listen, there are journalists who actually did inquire on people in Milwaukee, just as I think it's this weekend, Grand Rapids, where they were going to have their first event together, Trump event. They were asking people, do you know J.D. Vance? And people were admitting, no, I don't know him. But if Trump supports him, I support him. It's the cult. The great leader says, vote for this guy, they'll vote for him. Listen, America has been through this before. McCarthyism in the 50s, and I always forget the name, but people, please look it up. There was a Catholic priest in the time of the Great Depression. Father, people, please look it up. I forget his name. There was a Catholic priest who was very populist, and he got to a point where the Catholic priest got rejected even by the church because eventually he crossed too many lines. McCarthy eventually got rejected by the Republicans because he crossed too many lines. Here we have someone such as Donald Trump, but it's no longer the Republican Party. He has overtaken it. However, it's important to say there are Republicans who are pushing against Trump. There are not just Nikki Haley voters, but there are dedicated Republicans who will swallow the pill and say, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, whoever is a Democratic candidate, is the lesser of evil versus Trump. Meanwhile, notably here in Canada, and allow me to share this, just as our Pan-Africanist brother, Dr. Umar Johnson, was saying, how do you rationally explain that you have Black people who are cheering and supporting Trump? How do you rationally explain that there are Arabs who are supporting Trump? Latinos for Trump. This is cognitive dissonance. This is Hey, please, did you say you're going to kick me out of the country? You sound like my pick.
So just to catch up on a Minion Cam says, blank walk happened because the police said to women to avoid rape, don't ask for it. Amber Rose twisted it for her platform. The core of the blank walk is to end gender violence and rape culture, including victim blaming and blank shaming of sexual assault victims. Participants protest against explaining or excusing rape by referring to any aspect of a woman's appearance.
And meanwhile, Amber Rose goes there to support a man on record who talked about grabbing them by the, everybody knows, a man who has been convicted of sexual assault slash rape.
Yes.
A man who has a history of denigrating comments towards women, including his own daughter, Ivanka, in terms of the language, quite unfit of a father to his daughter, that is quite suspicious. People like Amber Rose, all the people who were there, and I'm even skipping all the lies that were said, all the exaggerations, but it's like a cult. They have the masses of people. Now, with someone like Kamala Harris, and I'm kind of flip-flopping between topics, but with someone like Kamala Harris, it's important to understand Donald Trump taking J.D. Vance as his VP. So this guy is very right-wing. The whole Project 2025, kind of reminiscing of, as my daughter was about to be born in 2021, I wanted to brush up on my gender studies from university, and having delivered conferences on women's rights and sexism and misogyny. I'm like, let's make sure that we are current. And I watched, I think I shared this before with you, Dr. Vibe. I watched this TV show, The Handmaid's Tale. Project 2025 is bringing us many steps closer. With already, as Dr. Umar Johnson said, many elements already being in place, including a corrupt Supreme Court, including a certain Judge Clarence Thomas, aka he's there to go back on abortion rights. Let us go back on interracial marriage and see what he will do regarding his white wife. Let us dare to have that conversation, because white supremacist Project 2025, and I'm seeing some blacks. Apparently, it is estimated that 13% black men might vote for Trump because of the disenchantment regarding Biden and the economy, etc., but also for others, opposition to LGBTQ rights and DEI, etc. I don't think people grasp, and again, I'm not a Democrat. I don't partake in the left-right dynamics of Western politics. I'm a Pan-Africanist. But the worst fate for my black people, America will be like any other empire. It will fall, it will crumble. Absolutely. But in terms of my black people, this is the Republican Party that has a long history of anti-blackness. And please, I already see some people who are going to come claim Lincoln was a Republican. This Republican Party, Republicans and Democrats pretty much switched on the race question in the 60s. We could truly say in the 50s, in the 40s and 50s, FDR, Eisenhower, JFK. This is when the switch in terms of racial dynamics really happened, from desegregation in the army in the context of World War II, the 1950s and beginning of civil rights with Ike, Eisenhower, and truthfully, MLK, JFK, RFK, Robert Kennedy, not the lunatic that was trying to be elected. But have to look at it, the reality for our black people, and notably as there's, talking about police immunity. Let's be honest. A year before George Floyd happened, a black cop had killed a white woman. there was no doubt that he would get prison sentence. This notion of police immunity, again, is on white cops killing non-white people, especially black people. It's notably to refrain from protests such as happened in the context of Black Lives Matter. And it's notably, and black people have to remember this, in preventing the rise of the Black Messiah, the next Fred Hampton, the next Stokely Carmichael, the next Louis, the next MLK, the next Malcolm X. Black activists are very scary to white supremacists. They were chanting, "You will not replace us." They're looking at a world in which whites are further and further a minority with a declining birth rate, and not only a booming African demographics, but even in the Americas, Brazil has become a majority black country, even if we mainly see white Brazil represented. Brazil, the nation with most blacks outside of Africa. India, there is black activism in India. More and more Indians are claiming their blackness, even though their hair may be different, like white people. They're claiming their blackness. There is a shift happening, and white supremacists, I didn't say whites, aka all white people. I'm saying white supremacists are feeling very uncomfortable because they are fundamentally scared of a revenge minorities in light of history. And here I'm saying white, mainly white supremacists, aka of European descent. But even when we look at the larger notion of whiteness, what I call Indo-Europeans, white Europeans, white Arabs, white Jews, white Aryans, Caucasians, the world is changing. The demographics of the world is changing. The politics of the world is changing. There's a polarization. Far-right movements are rising because people of European descent, but simply people who identify as white are seeing the change, the rise, the activism, the rise of consciousness, the rise of black spirituality, the rise of Pan-Africanism. Look at what's happening in Africa, the three countries of the Sahel, Mali, Niger, Burkina Faso. They kicked out the French, and Joe Biden took out American troops. Africa is waking up. Black communities have to further wake up.
Okay, good stuff. Well, I think that is it for today's conversation, but I know there are two other things that quickly. That
very quickly, very, very quickly. I just wanted to awaken, for those who do not know black people, this content regarding racism in football. As you know, football is my favorite sport. Hala Madrid, Real Madrid, but Argentina is the only country of the Americas that don't have a single visible black player on the football team. The only country, competition after competition. So every 2 years, you get the Copa America, then you get the World Cup. Argentina has a long history of racism. Black people, read up on the fate of Afro-Argentines, the terrible killing / genocide that has happened to them, the basically being pushed away from Argentina in order to create a white nation. And this was an official policy, but don't just look at Argentina. This was a policy from Canada to Brazil to whiten the nation, basically bringing more white migrants from Europe compared to the indigenous and the blacks, aka descendants of African slavery. Argentina, a nation where most are descendants of Italy and Germany as well. But here, the racism that they claimed on basically singing about French players, there is a truth to it. So many of the French players, you look at the photo, well, they're actually Africans. So yes, they play for France because they're born there. But let us have the conversation on developing African nations so that these people can, yes, get training in Europe, but play for the national countries, such as Sadio Mane did, Didier Drogba, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. Those who follow football know those names. And the notion of police use of force on blacks in Ottawa, Dr. Vibe, if you can maybe share the article that I sent you, on which I was interviewed just this week on Radio Canada, aka French CBC. Ottawa police released the report on the use of force from the police officers, and basically, can you share the article? I just want to show the part where, with my photo, black people will only represent 8% of the citizens of Ottawa, the capital of Canada, are 26% the ones who are victims of the use of force. The highest group, 3.3 times more than the representation. Very disproportionate. And you compare that to indigenous people, you compare that with Arabic/Middle Eastern people, but you also compare that with notably, yes, if we can go down the part, I'm going to read the part where my photo is. You compare that with basically, yes, just above that, please. I can read exactly what I wrote. You basically here, what I basically address is on one side, yes. Oh, this is, yes. Okay, this is in English, actually. On one side, as good as it is that article that police submit reports regarding the use of force, things are not changing, and we have to recognize documents after documents, reports after reports. It's not just systemic racism, it's also white privilege, because the very reports of police indicate the only racial group that is not disproportionately victim of use of force are white people. So white people are the only groups that are not disproportionately affected by the use of force. Black people are the group that is the most disproportionately impacted. Black consciousness, Black activism, and truly Black life is to be aware, is to stand up, is to basically come together to create, and I say it, I sound redundant. We say it on every show. We have said it already today. Dr. Vibe said it. We need to construct stronger families in order to create stronger communities. And this has nothing to do with being Republican or Democrat, conservative or liberal, dark skin, light skin, African, Caribbean, Christian, Muslim, or spiritual, or etc. In the reality of the world that we live in, we are seen and judged first and foremost through our skin. People will say character and this and that. They lie to your face, because they know full well judge first and foremost for being Black.
All right. Great way to end off today's conversation. As always, Cesar brought it, and we're able to probably one of the first major Black media outlets to give our lens, Black Canadians' lens of what's going on in the United States with President Biden. So I'm glad that Cesar could make it, and that's why Black media, especially in this country, is important. So, Cesar, if people want to get in touch with you, how can they do?
Well, link me up Facebook, Cesar Remy Emery, as you see there. My email address is there. And just before we finish, as we're so fittingly talking, you saw me move to my left. I was actually grabbing a book. This is a very interesting book that I've had for many years. Let me just get the year this book came out. But I always remind people, this is a version from 2007. People will get this book will understand. Henri Rome.
Wow. Okay.
The Fall of an Empire and the Fate of America. My friends, there is a quote that said, those who study history are condemned to see it being repeated, because those who basically make history refuse to learn from it. What we are seeing here the so-called fight for democracy, as Biden calls it. But, Trump claiming he's fighting for people's freedoms and rights and actually protecting democracy. This is Caligula. This is Nero. This is Caracalla. I've named 3 Roman emperors. My friends, I am Cesar. Look them up. Look up those emperors. Look up those emperors. You will see a lot of what's happening, a lot of the challenges that are happening right now. And truthfully, it's a very interesting time to be alive. It's a scary time for many people. I am not minimizing the fears that so many people, notably Black, but also white, have regarding the coming of Donald Trump. Will Canada become a nation taking in American migrants, political refugees from the USA? Suddenly it's not just those Arab people, those Africans, those Haitians, those Jamaicans. Could Americans become political, fleeing the country because of what a potential Trump presidency may bring? But on a positive note, my friends, I am not one of those who are saying that he will definitely win. There's a lot of time left, and the only thing he can absolutely be sure of is the MAGA vote, 25 to 30%, but you need 50% to win, 50.1%.
Oh, not necessarily. The way they have
there is a Supreme Court. There is a Supreme Court.
Yes.
And don't be surprised. That's what happens. Where just as Gore in 2000, but even Hillary Clinton in 2016, winning the popular vote but losing either at the Electoral College or losing in the Supreme Court. And this Supreme Court, has already shown it is corrupt. It is not a balanced BS. It is not a balanced. It is not a biased.
No one governs them. No one governs them. They govern themselves.
They govern themselves. Yeah.
All right, my man. As always, thank you. And always to you and your family. Don't just manage your time, manage your energy, and remember to give yourself grace. Take care, my brother. Thank you as always. All right, family, we are done. What an epic conversation. But that's just par for the course. That's what we do here. So let me just get something going here. There we go. We'll put it at the bottom. So a few things before we exit today. First things first, subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. And continue. So next level is 1,600 subscribers. We just passed 1,500. 1,600 is next. Also subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram to advertise your business, product, or service on any of the platforms I'm a part of. Please feel free to email me, dr.vibe@thedrvibeshow.com. If you want to get in touch with me, website, thedrvibeshow.com, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, The Dr. Vibe Show, X/Twitter, @drvibeshow, and Instagram @the drvibeshow, and finally, email dr.vibe@thedrvibeshow.com. If you want to catch replays of this epic conversation, you can. You can catch them at the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, and at the website, the drvibeshow.com, and also edited versions of this program. If you want to catch them, they are at indiesoupmedia.tv. Let me put that right there. Okay? So, as always, this is how we close out our conversations. Live your life as a dream. If you can dream, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. Remember to give yourself grace and don't just manage your time, manage your energy. God bless. Peace to all. Keep faith, keep the faith, and walk good. Let me just say, don't just manage your time, manage your energy, and remember to give yourself grace. God bless. Peace be well. Keep the faith and walk good.